All right, guys, as we get ready to head out on Jazz, I had a sidebar question come in that was kind of off the record, and I was asked to kind of do a response, I guess, or basically I was asked if my view had changed. So let's dive into it, shall we?
T-bone roars like a thunderstorm blast. Engine growling as the trees rush past. Wheels on fire carve the mountain's face. The legend rides with a reckless grace. T-bone's shadow cuts the sky through the peaks where.
All right, guys. Hooligan, if you'll listen, I've actually got my I got my exhaust guard. Got a clamp on it finally. But anyway, welcome in, guys, as we take out on Jazz. If you're new here, Jazz is the 2000 Road King. So I was asked to, I was asked if I still felt the same way. Guys, probably 3 or 4 years ago now, I don't remember exactly how long. But yeah, this Jazz, looking good right there. But I was asked, or I had did a video, probably, guys, 4 years ago now, 4 years ago, and I have talked about the subject of motorcycle culture, clubs, etc. I have discussed all that stuff on this channel before. You know, not super in depth, but I have covered, you know, culture, whether it be chopper culture or bagger culture. We've kind of talked about all that stuff and where is it in the world now. And I had made a statement in one of my older videos. You can go find it. I had to go dig through it and find it to make sure of what I said. But I had made this statement, and I was talking about motorcycle clubs. And I had kind of made the statement that I said, I don't think motorcycle clubs will ever go away. So the guy who asked me about it had watched a video on the YouTube channel Insane Throttle. I'll try to tag Insane Throttle Hollywood in this episode if I can remember. Insane Throttle is kind of in the vein as like Black Dragon. I think Mike Ball even does some, you know, motorcycle protocol, club protocol, culture protocol, news, biker news. So if you watch Black Dragon and Lavish Williams and Dr. Logic, that's what Hollywood's channel is, Insane Throttle. Now, Hollywood was in the 1%er world. And I had said back in that episode that I didn't think motorcycle clubs would ever go away. I always kind of believed that there would be a need for motorcycle clubs because retiring servicemen coming home from being in the military, looking for camaraderie, looking for brotherhood. But what I didn't take into account was what the motorcycle clubs themselves, especially the 1%er clubs, were actually doing to themselves. Now, I'm not affiliated with any motorcycle club. I'm not even in a club anymore. We have a riding group that just friends who get together and ride. But where my knowledge about this world comes from is, if you are new here, I've been on the back of a motorcycle 38 years. I've been riding motorcycles for nearly, 39 years, nearly 40 years. God, nearly 4 decades I've been on a motorcycle. I've been riding street bikes since the 80s. I went and told my dad, and my regulars know the story. I went in and asked my dad for a dirt bike, and he said, let me think about it. Well, he ended up buying me a XL350 Honda street bike. And that was my introduction to the motorcycle world. And I've ridden street bikes ever since I was 8 years old. But in the 90s, a younger T-Bone this would have been 95, maybe. A very young T-Bone was flirting with the ideal of joining a 1%er. Well, it was a support club for a 1% club that would later on in the years be patched over. But at the time, it was a support club, and you know, me and my buddy Barry, rest in peace Barry, me and Barry was kind of hanging around with these guys and, you know, seeing what they were all about. They were filling us out and we were filling them out. They knew we were firefighters, volunteer firefighters, and they were okay with that. You know, it wasn't like we was undercover cops or nothing, but we were firefighters. And we had went on a ride with them. They had invited us to go on a ride, and we were going to we were going to Knoxville, Tennessee one evening. And you know, we stopped at a restaurant, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys, the way these guys acted and the way they treated the people at the restaurant made me pretty well quickly decide that I didn't want to be part of their group. Not that I thought they were bad people, it was just their values didn't line up with my values, if that makes sense. So I kind of backed off of it, and you know, later on Barry would he would agree with me. He was like, you know, the way they acted, it was adolescent for one, but we were riding as a support club, and as a hang around, we were riding with the support club, but we were with the Diamond Club, and it was the Diamond members who were acting this way. And you know, the one thing I learned about myself very quickly, I learned about myself that I wasn't 1%er material. You know, like I said, their values and my values, I was rough around the edges, which was one of the things that kind of attracted them to me, I guess. But I was just trying to be a decent human being. I was trying to be a good person, if that makes sense. And I learned something quick about myself, and that was that I was not 1%er material. I learned that pretty quick. So I was watching Hollywood. Hollywood was, you know, he's talking about clubs here lately. Of course, he left the club he was in. Don't know which one it was. None of my business really, but he was talking about the damage that was being done to the 1%er clubs. And I have never really spoken on the 1%er clubs because that's not my world. But it is Hollywood's world. He could tell you just about anything you want to know about it. But so I was asked if my opinion has changed. Do I still think that motorcycle clubs will not completely go away? One of the things that I noticed with Hollywood's video that he made, you know, was something I kind of talked about in my video from 4 years ago. You're dealing with a different group of people now. You're dealing with an entirely different generation of people. And it was kind of we talk about the Sons of Anarchy effect. Late birth millennials and early birth Gen Z came into their own. They adolesced and came into adulthood during that series, a lot of them. So when I looked at it as a whole, I saw it as a good thing because it was, to me, it was putting more people on motorcycles. It was making our culture bigger, if that makes sense. It's kind of one of them things we all talk about. When there's more of us, there's less of them. But I had talked about the way that these young people who were coming into the motorcycle culture were not really attracted to the whole club thing. And, you know, I had kind of pointed out that, you know, that word mandatory, when somebody says that word mandatory, and that was another thing that kind of pushed me back away from the club scene. You know, it's hard to be, I wasn't in the military, so I wasn't that minded. I wasn't the soldier, fall into line mentality. I didn't have that. But a lot of these kids today, and here's where the disconnect happened, or where I think it happened, where from what I have seen, I think the disconnect came from the fact that these people are having to pay inflated prices for motorcycles. So they're not going to pay $50,000 or $60,000 for a motorcycle, pay taxes on that motorcycle, register that motorcycle, pay taxes on the registration, pay taxes on the gas and all the oil, and you know, they're not going to do all of that to just then turn around and say, well, yeah, you can tell me where I'm going to ride, how I'm going to ride, what part of the road I can ride on. That world is done, my friends. I really believe with all my heart that world's done. That's over with. Those days are finished. And I think, you know, there was a clip, it was a TikTok video about a guy riding a cross rocket, young kid. You might have seen it. And he was going to pass the boggos. There was like 3 boggos. And he was doing exactly what I'm doing right now. He was motovlogging. And he was asking, hey, am I wrong? I can't, I've got to go around these guys. And one of the boggos waved him back, and he went on. He was like, I'm not going to pay for my motorcycle, and I'm not going to pay all these taxes on my motorcycle for somebody to tell me I can't ride it the way I want to ride it on the road. There's enough laws that keep us from riding the way we want to ride. So, you know, us older riders from Gen X, we understand motorcycle protocol. You know, there's certain things you do, there's certain things you don't do. We still have the respect for what it is. We still respect it. But these new kids don't respect it. And guys, like I said, man, when mom and dad are pulling down 6-figure jobs, and, you know, let's not pretend like this 22-year-old kid bought this $50,000 motorcycle with his money. Mom and dad's money bought this motorcycle. So mom and dad's got money. And, you know, just my point of view, but if you start pulling the kids off of their motorcycles and stripping off leather vests and beating these kids or hitting them or, you know, damaging their motorcycles, you're going to jail. That's just all there is to it. Those days are over with. And I've heard a lot of older 1%ers on YouTube say that. Hey, they're even telling their own club members, hey, y'all need to lighten up a little bit. This not gonna hunt no more. You know, I don't know, it's the, you know, the rebels, they wanna, not the rebel club, but just the rebels in general in society, they want to show that hard attitude and flex, and it's going to end up costing. And man, I'll tell you, these kids today, they're not going to play that game. You know, you're not going to, you might intimidate them once, but as soon as they get home to mom and daddy, the intimidation's over with. Then the lawsuits begin. And I've seen it. I'm not just talking out of turn here. I've seen it happen. There was a big case here a few years back in Atlanta where some club members had attacked a young kid, and he was wearing a cut. Of course, it didn't have no patches or anything on it, but they were telling him that they were going to take his motorcycle and take his cut. And about the time they were saying all that, the kid's dad pulled in driving a brand new H3 Hummer. He jumped out of the Hummer, And he was a lawyer. He was actually a attorney. And just within a minute, the sheriff's department was surrounding the gas station. And it could have been a bad day. Had they laid a hand on that kid, they would have all went to prison. I can tell you that right now. That attorney would not have stopped until they all went to prison. And of course, you're doing this in a town where the attorney and the judge are probably brother-in-laws. The prosecutor is probably married into the family. So, you know, those days are over with. But, you know, Gen X, my generation, we still get it. We understand. We understand what the protocol is. But, you know, I said in that other video, you know, that's the kind of stuff that's hurting the clubs. Not just the 1%er clubs. I don't know anything about the 1%er clubs, but what I was talking about was the regular, you know, motorcycle clubs that aren't 1%ers. They're dwindling down. They're going away. And a lot of it is because of the reputation and the stigma that comes with riding a motorcycle. You know, we've talked about it here on this channel before about where I grew up here in the South. I'm in Georgia. All the way up to the early 2000s, it was very taboo to ride a motorcycle. You know, and back in the 80s and the 90s when we were riding, you weren't just T-bone riding a motorcycle. Oh God, the Hells Angels have come to town, or the Outlaws are invading us. And you're like, dude, I'm not even in a club. I'm just riding my motorcycle. But that was the taboo, and that was the stigma that went along with it. So, yes, we've come a long way in the culture. But, you know, like I said, it has its high moments and it has its low moments. And there's a lot of stuff happening with the clubs right now, the 1%er clubs. And I'm not going to speak on that because that's not my world. It's not my place to speak on it. Go over there and talk to Hollywood. Listen to what Hollywood's talking about on Insane Throttle. Black Dragon Biker News, he's talking about it. But, you know, it's not my place to talk about it as far on the 1%er level. But I have been in other clubs. I've been the president of 2 different riding clubs. And, you know, I started seeing it happen probably, it was probably in the late 90s. You know, that was when the television choppers were taking over the world. American Chopper and Jesse James, and, you know, you had all these rich people who were going out and buying choppers, and they were riding them to the bars on the weekend. And they were hanging out at their clubs, their country clubs. And, you know, the motorcycle culture changed in the 90s. It was a big change. And a lot of that change came with a different mentality that you're now seeing come from the Gen Z. That, hey, we're not in your world, so you're not going to tell us how to ride our motorcycles or where we can ride or how we can ride, because we're not in your world. We don't exist in your world. So, you know, it's a catch-22. Do they want the respect? Yeah, sure, they want the respect. But are you willing to send all of your members to prison to get the respect? That is the real question. That's the serious question. Are your members willing to go to prison to get the respect? And when you've got RICO and everything else working against you, is it really worth it? So as to my original statement that I made 4 or 5 years ago, or 3 years ago, whatever it was, do I think the motorcycle clubs will disappear? Do I think that people will just quit joining them? I think to an extent there will be a decline in them continuously. But again, I have to go back to the military aspect of things. You know, guys coming out of the military looking for camaraderie, looking for that feeling that they had with their brothers in the military when they were deployed or whatever. I still kind of have to believe in my heart of hearts that in some way, some shape, some form, that the clubs will survive. Now, does that mean that there won't be some kind of big change come to the clubs? The clubs from the 50s and 60s and even up to the early 70s, when the 80s and 90s came along, those clubs changed. Some of them changed for the better, some of them changed for the worse. But I still kind of, like I said, I still kind of have to believe that there will always be a desire for camaraderie. And, they could find that certainly without getting on a motorcycle. But the motorcycle culture makes that kind of camaraderie more accessible, easier accessed, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But, no, I don't think it'll ever completely go away. I think what you will see is it will evolve. I think you'll see evolution. I think you'll see change. I think you'll see the ideology behind motorcycle clubs change. But for the most part, I think you'll see it decline, but I don't think you'll ever just see it completely disappear. But now, to go back to what Hollywood was talking about, Hollywood's not giving the 1%ers much grace here. He's basically just laying it out there. Hey, if y'all don't chill out a little bit, if y'all don't calm down a little bit, you're hurting yourself. You're hurting your chances to do several things. One is to have a good image in the public, and we can all say what we want to. No matter what percenter club you're in, 3%er nation, 99%er independent. I'm independent. You don't want people calling the cops on you every time you come into town. So, one, you're hurting your image with the public, and two, you're hurting your image in another way, the way that you draw people in. They're just doing everything the wrong way. Not that I know what the right way is. I mean, I don't understand any of it, just to be honest with you. I get it. I get it. I get why you would want to be in a club. But the ideology of it, that's kind of where they lose me. The things that they're willing to do, I guess, that's where they lose me at too. I'm not willing to hurt people just because I can. That's not cool. I want to be a good person, a good human being. And, Hollywood was talking there a couple weeks back, I think, one of the episodes I watched. He was talking about the freedom of not being in a club. Ride where I want, how I want. I don't have to ride a specific motorcycle. He bought himself I think he said a 1500 Kawasaki, which is a great bike. I had one time. I think it shocked him some, not maybe completely, but I think he was shocked just a little bit of how liberating it was not being in a 1%er club. Now, is it that way in every club? No. You're not going to get the 99%er, the mom and pop club, the riding club. They're not going to talk about mandatory stuff. You have to do this and you have to do that. You're not going to get that out of the 99%ers. That mandatory stuff, that's kind of restricted mainly to the 1%er world. But it's their bylaws, it's their rules, their guidelines. It's how they survived for all those years, if that makes sense. But there it is, guys. I hope that answers the question. Short form, no, I don't think that clubs will disappear. I don't think motorcycle clubs in general will disappear. I think you'll see change. I think you'll see evolution come from it. Sadly, I think there'll be more hard times to come before things ultimately change. But that's happening right now in the mindset. That's happening in the mindset of the newer generation. Their minds are changing automatically. They don't see things the way the old guard sees it. They don't even see it the way I see it. And I'm old guard, I guess, but I hope that answers your question, brother. I guess I kind of still hold the same opinion, the same hope. I mean, I think about, because one of the things I think about, and I'll kind of make this a little shorter. One of the things I think about is I think about groups like the combat vets, like the Nam Knights, like BACA, Bikers Against Child Abuse. I think about the groups that are there helping people. And yeah, I mean, essentially they're groups, but they are motorcycle clubs. And I very much, you guys who've been around the channel for a while, I support them guys and gals in what they do. But the culture's changing. Harley Davidson is shooting themselves in the foot. I haven't made a video yet, and I was asked about it the other day in a chat, about the Thunder, whatever it is, the Chinese Sportster or whatever it's supposed to be. I watched Professional Monkeys talking about that. I don't know about that, guys. That's, we'll see. That's all I can say. I don't think that, according to what Professional Monkey says, it's reverse engineering. You're number one in my book, buddy. But, you don't never know what's going to happen with a corporation like that. And Harley is a corporation, guys. It's, Harley's not just a little mom and pop organization. And corporations are good at doing one thing. They're good at pulling support and money out of nowhere. So, have we seen the death of Harley Davidson? No, I don't think so. I think Harley is still very much in the game, because, I mean, look, the middle-aged guys are buying, they're not buying them as much, but they are still buying motorcycles from Harley. So I think what you're going to see there, too, is I think you're going to, we've talked about that. I think you'll just see Harley Davidson figure out what they're going to do with themselves. Who knows? But I'll tell you what, guys, this video is probably getting a little bit longer than two. This is probably going to be a Saturday episode, because I've got the next several Mondays covered with Halloween content. So this will probably be a Saturday episode. But, I hope that answers your question, brother. I hold out hope for things, but, like I said, as far as what's going on in the 1%er world, I cannot speak on that. I'm not in that world. Like I said, go check out Hollywood on Insane Throttle. Check out Black Dragon, Biker News Network. Those guys can tell you what's going on inside the 1%er world. But guys, until the next time, I'm going to say we got us a video shot. But until the next time, y'all remember to take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. If you're new here, go backwards from here. Check out my archives. And then if you think that we're right for you, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button and joining the Rolling with T-Bone crew. Don't cost you anything. Guys, until the next time, take care of yourselves, and hey, thanks for watching.